My name is Paxton, and this is the Career Spotlight. Today, we are joined by Dana Eshelman, who is a registered dietitian and a nutrition coach. Welcome, Dana. What do you do as a registered dietitian? And then also, what do you do as a nutrition coach? And how are those two jobs different?
As a registered dietitian in the industry, I primarily am in a clinical role. So I work with an interdisciplinary team, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, and guiding patient care, making sure they have a nutrition plan that's appropriate for their medical need. So a lot of medical nutrition therapy there. As a nutrition coach, I do a lot of guidance in terms of lifestyle habits, focusing on behavioral change and setting them up for sustainable habits in the long term.
How interesting. So overall, what are some good reasons to go into this career, and why might some people like it?
I think nutrition has been undermined for so many years as a critical part of health and longevity. And so seeing this up and coming field grow exponentially right now is really awesome. And so a lot of people might take advantage of that in being in the forefront and just being those people to help guide others that maybe don't know about nutrition as much, maybe weren't introduced to nutrition as children, and teaching them that nutrition really is preventative care. And I mean, it's really great to see transformations. I think that's my most favorite part of the job, is to see a client go from point A to B, whether that be in weight management, seeing lab values change, seeing their confidence change. All of those things are really awesome.
I feel like right now people are just realizing how important this is to our health. Kind of following up, what would you say has sparked the change of people trying and getting into nutrition more?
I think it's just awareness in the health field in general. I think before it was a lot of treatment, a lot of take this pill and you'll solve this issue kind of thing. And now people are like, well, what can I do to prevent myself from even getting to the point that I need to take a pill? So just awareness in general.
Would you say that people that work with you already understand the importance, or is part of the job convincing them?
That's a really great question. So in a clinical role, and seeing patients, a lot of times they are referred to me by a provider, so by a physician. And in that sense, they are not necessarily aware of the role nutrition plays. Many times I'm seeing somebody for a cardiac disease or diabetes or kidney disease, where sometimes they're forced to see me essentially. Whereas as a nutrition coach, I will see somebody that is actually reaching out to me on their behalf. You know, they're like, hey, I am really struggling getting my blood pressure down. What can I do to make this happen? And so they're aware of that they need to make a nutrition change.
What is your favorite part of the job overall?
So I touched a little bit on this earlier, but my favorite part really is seeing those transformations and kind of those aha moments from my clients. And they're just like, this is what I need to do to make a change and to prevent myself from going down the path of not so healthy.
That sounds very rewarding, seeing them actually make the change.
Yes, it's super rewarding.
All jobs have good things and bad things. So what are some not so fun parts of the job?
Two separate things. So again, in a clinical role, all of the documentation that comes behind it is, I think I spend probably 60% of my day behind a screen, documenting what I talked with a patient about. Super necessary. You know, we need those checks and balances, but not my favorite part. I would rather be in front of a patient giving education. on the same kind of spectrum in more of a nutrition coach role is the marketing side of things, paperwork, things like that to move the business in the right direction. It's, it's time consuming. And so again, with that, I would rather be with a client, doing education, doing workshops, things like that. So
When you say clinical role, are you talking about like when you're under someone else working in a clinic?
yes, good question. So yes, in a hospital or in a clinic is what I mean.
I understand you have moved more towards entrepreneurship. And starting your own business. Would you say there's less paperwork in that entrepreneurship role?
So yes, in short, depending on if you take insurance or not. And so right now I am taking insurance, and so there's quite a bit of paperwork that comes with that. If you decide to go the route in entrepreneurship where you do not take insurance, you are your own boss. I mean, I'm my own boss too, but you don't have anybody checking in on your paperwork. So as when you take insurance, they can audit your notes and things like that to make sure that you are seeing their patient in terms of what they're providing for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so the paperwork for the insurance is very time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say some good personality traits for this job are?
So I think as a dietitian in general, you need to be very self-motivated and driven to really make sure that you're able to provide the best care for that patient. Many times, even in a clinical role as a dietitian, many times your boss may be the kitchen staff and they may not know exactly what a dietitian does. So making sure that you're holding yourself accountable to have that balance with the physician and the patient care. And then switching to a nutrition coaching position, with that, making sure that you're a critical thinker, that you're, regardless of what the day brings, you are going to have to be able to prioritize your tasks. And I always say your most important tasks, make sure you get them done first thing in the morning so you can have the rest of the day to have that balance too.
What would you say some personality traits aren't so great for this job?
Probably somebody that is a little bit more shy and reserved and not willing to voice, especially, you're in a role with dominant personalities when you get in the roles with physicians and therapists and things that are very matter of fact. And so you need to be able to voice your side and explain your expertise in that sense. Somebody that is not self-motivated and not able to prioritize their tasks. Time management is huge. If you don't have time management, you're not going to make it. Sometimes in the clinic, I would have 15 people to see in a 4-hour window. That's a lot, especially if you have a new patient. So making sure that you're able to, prioritize and get in what you need to get in.
So prioritization, time management, and self-motivation are all things you really need.
Yes, exactly.
You've mentioned that you love to see transformations. Are there any times that at work there have been experiences that have made you very happy, like high points?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm thinking of one off the top of my head, but I had a patient that's very diabetic, and their blood sugar levels were really high, and working with them over the course of 3 months is really when we start to see changes in the blood sugar and lab values go down. Significant drop, not only in that, but in in their weight management. So their blood sugars, their weight management, just their overall health and physical activity, all of that, all encompassing, improved within that 3-month span. So those are just, I mean, those times for me are super, super high always. And then, I mean, you always have clients that don't do so great. And so those are ones that are more challenging. Absolutely.
Yeah. You've talked or mentioned a few times about values. What are those?
Oh, lab values. So um anytime you get blood work done at the doctor's office, um they will measure things like your electrolyte balance, your blood sugar levels, um red and white blood cell counts, things like that. I don't necessarily touch the red and white blood cell counts. Those aren't huge to me, but things like blood sugar control, electrolyte balance, renal labs, which your kidney balance and labs are things that I look at regularly. And so seeing those numbers change in a positive light versus negative light, I also look at the negative values, but obviously I want to see them move positively, and nutrition affects those a lot.
What are some things that are telltale signs that you're right for this job? Like, what are some things that can show that this job is meant for you?
I think if you truly are somebody that likes to serve others, that you're going to put other people before yourself is a really big big sign, you know, and I think in any healthcare position really. And then if you're able to really coach somebody and this goes either in the clinical role, nutrition coaching role, if you're really able to coach somebody and be willing to meet somebody where they're at, because there's so many times that I have to switch gears with, you know, with one client to my next client, where the one client is really, really excelling and doing really well, and I'm kind of like letting off the training wheels and guiding them on their own. Whereas the next client, I'm taking them by the hand and saying, you know, this is a vegetable, this is a fruit, we need to include these in our diet, you know. So very very different aspects. And so I think that, you know, being willing to serve and being willing to put others before yourself.
You've talked here a bit too about being able to serve people. What about is like the range of ages that you help?
So clinically, I was helping more of an elderly population, primarily, gosh, 60 and above. And so that was who I was working with in the clinic. And then now, as more of my nutrition coaching role, I have youth athletes. My youngest is 15, and then through middle age. So again, in that 50 age range is kind of where I'm seeing my top clients. So I'm working on a really broad spectrum right now, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You really have to be able to talk and know how to talk to a wide variety of ages, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What kinds of things outside of your control affect the job, like COVID or pandemics, the economy, weather, things like that?
Absolutely. Good question. So COVID really affects the clinical role, obviously. We in that role, we partnered with nursing homes, assisted livings, and during that time, and still today, actually, I'm not able to physically see a patient in person. It's all virtual. And I mean, really, the weather, economy, things like that didn't necessarily affect the business. It's a hospital setting, you kind of everything goes no matter what. And unless COVID happens. In terms of nutrition coaching, everything that I do is virtual. So similar to how we're doing now, I meet with my patients via Zoom or Google Meet, whatever they prefer, and coach them that way. I feel like this has been really beneficial for client care and client comfort. They really enjoy it.
So if I understand correctly, you recently started your own business, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that. And
Yeah.
the website will be up on the screen and I'll put it down in the description. But yeah,
Perfect.
tell us a bit about your new company that you've made.
I just created a dash of Dana nutrition coaching, and I am coaching, like I said, a variety of clients from young athletes through middle aged. I really target a more active population and improving their understanding of nutrition, whether they want to reach performance goals physically, or if they're looking to change body composition, which would be changing their muscle to fat ratio in their body, improving lab values, like we talked a little bit about. Those are things that I work with a lot. I yeah, I'm taking I'm taking a variety of clients on right now, and just building that business. I do I do things from a range of one-on-one coaching. I was doing grocery store tours, but that has been put on pause with COVID. So I guess that is an area I've been affected in. And then I do virtual cooking classes as well. And so teaching how to use different foods and how to meal prep, things like that.
What is the work-life balance like for this job and also the clinical one?
Yeah, great question. Clinical role, you're usually an hourly employee. They don't have, I mean, most places don't have salary. It just depends on the company you're working for, but my individual one was hourly. So really encouraged to have a work-life balance, and not go over that 40 hours a week. It did happen more often than not, just because um, of patient caseload. And so, but generally speaking, great work-life balance. No concern with that. As in an entrepreneurial role, it's I make my own schedule, which is really cool. But it's also, as your own boss, you have to create those boundaries for yourself. I tend to be a workaholic, and so I kind of work all the time, but I'm learning to set hours and step back and have a work-life balance. But I think, in any entrepreneurial role, those first 3 to 5 years are going to be, you have to be able to put in the work to make your business thrive. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it is rewarding in the end.
absolutely. I mean, I say every day, going to work for me or like talking to my clients is not even work. I love it so much. So if anything, it gives me a ton of energy and pushes me through on the work that I don't necessarily love that much, like the admin side of stuff. So um,
Yeah,
like any job, there's going to be perks and not so great moments. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
And what are some words of advice for people who want to go into this job, like the education required? How long does it take to advance? Is it stressful?
Good question. So any person, a prospective nutrition or dietitian, I would, it's a lot of education. So you were able to just do your bachelor's, and I believe starting in 2024, you are required to get your master's. So you are looking at it at minimum 6 years of schooling. And then in addition to that, you have to do your dietetic internship, which is 1,200 hours of supervised practice. So usually that's about a year. So 7 years at least of education background. It's great. It goes really fast, I'm not gonna lie. But it's a lot and you do need to commit to it. In terms of advancing, I think that could be individual based on your company. Um, there's kind of a ceiling with nutrition. You know, you can go in as a clinical dietitian and advance to a clinical manager, but that's kind of your height. So not a ton of room for advancement in the field, which is primarily why I moved to an entrepreneur role, is because I felt like I could do more. In an entrepreneur role, you know, that's not necessarily more education, but more learning the business side of things. So a little bit different. So I honestly feel like I'm back in school again. But that's, you know, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Stress levels, I think just like with any job, checks and balances. You're gonna have days that are not stressful, and you're gonna have days that you, like I said, you have to see 15 clients in 4 hours, and you're just like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. So.
Yeah. But that is a lot of schooling. It's does not, like, from the job title, doesn't sound like there's that much, but there actually is a lot.
Yeah, people don't realize because it's not, you know, I'm not like a doctorate or things like that, so people don't realize the education that goes behind it.
So I know you are a dietitian and you promote eating healthy, but how many times do you slip up? What is,
in my nutrition?
yeah, your own
Oh,
nutrition.
good question. So just like anybody, I'm human, right? I truly have a sweet tooth and I love chocolate. So I do not deny myself chocolate. I'm a firm believer in balance in all things, and that includes nutrition. I actually have a piece of dark chocolate every night. So I don't necessarily say that's a slip up. I think that's just balance. And I really encourage my clients to do the same thing. Make sure that their favorite foods are included in their diet every day so they're not feeling deprived.
So you promote not being on a very strict diet. You promote more of controlling your diet, but you have to give yourself some food so that you don't slip up even more.
Correct.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so no, I'm not big on calorie restriction. I'm not big on denying yourself certain food groups. That I've seen time and time again that is not effective long term. Rather, changing behaviors versus resorting to outcomes is the best way to, you know, live healthfully long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's last question. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
You're so welcome.
And now, remember, if you want to learn more about jobs, go down there, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon so you never miss another video, and leave a comment saying who I should interview next. Goodbye.